Hi guys, I'm Paul Kinlan, and I'd like to introduce Alex Komorowski, who's you're a product manager, right?
Yes, product manager on the web platform.
On the web platform. I'm a developer advocate at Google, and we're both working on the Web Intense project. And today, this is the first of our, hopefully bi-weekly or fortnightly, as we say in the UK at least, series of Web Intense Wednesdays. It's not every single Wednesday. We want to try and kind of kickstart the community and kickstart kind of basically not the hype, but kind of what's happening inside the developer community, what's happening with apps, what's happening with Web Intense, and just find a generally friendly way to actually get in contact with you, the developers, building applications on the web today, who are interested in Web Intense, who want to know what it's all about, and yeah, let's go from here. So we have a little bit of a technical snag at the moment. We wanted to give you a nice demonstration of what Web Intense are and kind of show some applications, but unfortunately the software that I'm using decided to stop working about 3 or 4 minutes before the presentation. So my apologies. The next time we do this, we'll give you a better set of demonstrations and hopefully show some applications that other developers have built in the ecosystem. But in the meantime, we might as well just get started and talk about what Web Intense are. And hopefully Alex will be able to grill me with a whole lot of questions that you as developers also might be interested with.
Yep. So I'll be playing the role of you basically in this interview, asking him all the hard questions and sort of channel what you'd be asking, hopefully.
Cool. So we also do have a moderator page. It's on our Google Developers Live moderator. So if you just go to our YouTube channel and see this event, you'll be able to go and ask questions. We do have a really good set of questions that we're going to try and answer a little bit later. But anyway, we'll start with an introduction. So, like many people, you might have heard a little bit about Web Intense, but not actually quite sure what it is. So, Web Intense is basically a standard, or not a standard yet. It's a specification that's built into Chrome that we're working on with the W3C at the moment to actually help application developers be able to integrate their applications a lot more easily. Right now, application developers, if they want to build an application, that talks to Twitter or some other remote kind of sharing service, you have to normally do a deep integration. The user normally has to install either a piece of software, whether it's a bookmarklet or some other kind of widget to actually have the share happen. And Web Intense is designed to kind of say, well, you as a developer, you can't actually build all these deep integrations into kind of your application. You can't support every single social network that lives on the open web today. But you want to give your users control and your users some flexibility to be able to choose the services that they want to use for these actions across the web. Now, the interesting thing is that the Web Intense API is designed to kind of slightly disintermediate some of those kind of API integrations. You don't have to have a deep integration to be able to talk to other remote services. And just before we continue, I'm just going to move this because it turns out I can't position cameras very well for our presentations. And now Alex is at the shot. So here we go. It's a little bit better. At least it should look like I'm looking at you rather than at some kind of person behind the screen. So I apologize. Web Intense is just a simple API that allows us to build applications that talk to each other way more easily than it is right now. We would normally show a demonstration, but unfortunately, because the screen sharing doesn't work, and it is my machine and it's all my fault, it's not a problem with the actual software, we can't show a nice little demonstration. So, tell you what, should we talk about some of the news things that have happened?
Yeah, let's talk about what's happened in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay, cool. So in the past couple of weeks, what's kind of happened with Web Intense? Well, I think the first and biggest thing for me at least was we did a presentation at Google I/O. It is on our YouTube channel at the moment, if you want to go and check it out. And actually there you will be able to see demonstrations that are live that we did on stage using the Web Intense API. So we do have a presentation. We also had a really kind of interesting meeting with W3C where I wasn't actually present, but I was on the phone call at the time, where we were kind of talking about how we can basically integrate other APIs into Web Intense. I'm going to share out the links to the notes because the notes are publicly available, but not many people read them. So just after this presentation, I'm going to share out the notes. The interesting thing is that it's kind of interesting to see the types of APIs that want to integrate with Web Intense. So people want to be able to pick media or pick contacts from your particular device. So let's say it's your phone. You want to be able to pick a contact from your phone. The best way to do it, well, maybe not the best way to do it right now, but the best way we're thinking about doing it is via the Web Intense API. Mm-hmm. So you can basically say, I need to pick a contact from my address book. Your address book on your phone could actually live as the physical address book, but it could also be Google Contacts. It could be whatever kind of services support on the web that support the ability to pick contacts. So that's one of the areas that we've talked about, and also picking media as well. Yeah. So the idea is, your phone might have a gallery. You might have a gallery of your favorite photos on the web somewhere. You should be able to pick that photo or any kind of media from those devices and actually be able to manipulate it inside your application.
I think the point here is that Web Intents is not just one singular API, it's actually an enabler of lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
So people are really starting to discuss, especially right now in the W3C and other standards bodies and groups, how they could use this plumbing of Web Intents to connect up applications with other things like media galleries and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of interesting thing. We all talk about sharing data. The ability to share a link to a social network is kind of one of the key APIs. But that's actually one really small facet of what Web Intents is trying to do.
Yeah.
We want to connect applications based on an action. So the user wants to perform some action on the web. They want to edit an image, right? Or they want to kind of pick a document from some cloud file storage solution. There should be generalized actions via an API, which hopefully is Web Intents, to be able to just let you say, well, my application, I need to pick an image from somewhere on the web. It could be on your hard drive. It could be on your cloud file storage solution. We've got some Chrome extensions, which I want to share out a little bit later, which let you pick an image from an individual tab that's running inside your browser, which is kind of cool, right? I mean, picking an image from another web page that's actually inside your browser is actually a pretty complex task. You find the image, you right-click it, download it somewhere, and upload it into another application.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, right. I mean, everyone's got this downloads directory that's just full of, well, I was going to say a rude word, rubbish. It's just full of things, it's just like hubris, basically, that you've just downloaded, you've never deleted, you've never got around to, because your applications aren't integrated. So, it's not just share, it's pick, it's edit, it's the ability to say, I need to edit this image just to remove some red eye. And, you find an application that supports image editing, and you'll be able to send the data there and pull it back. So next week, I'll show you, or not next week, the next time we do this in 2 weeks' time, I'll show you a proper demonstration about how all this hooks up. And I'll actually show you the code as well, because it's actually really simple.
It's surprisingly simple to get this to work.
Yeah, so the demo that we have is on imagemaker.com. It's like 20 lines of code with 4 different actions. So, yeah.
So you can wait till for 2 weeks to see the demo, or you can just check out the I/O video, which shows off a more complicated demo of how all this stuff works.
And it also shows a really cool presentation a picture of when I prove I invented Google Glass. Like 2 or 3 years ago, right? You have to go and check it out. Just check it out to see what it's like, because I think it's pretty cool, but no one believes me. So cool. We might as well jump to the questions. We have about 10 questions so far.
And just so you know, again, the link to submit questions in the Google moderated page is on the plus page. So follow that link, submit some questions, and we'll walk through these.
Yeah. I mean, this week is very much an experimentation week. We want to hear feedback from you guys about what you want to hear, what you want to see, and kind of the types of information that you'd like to kind of get a bi-weekly roundup of. So feel free to email me, paulkinlan@google.com. I'm very open to kind of sharing my email address, so it's not too bad. So let's jump into these questions. So the first question from X is, have you considered cross-Android Web Intents? Could you enable some interesting use cases, like being able to directly launch into related parts of a web app from a related Android app and vice versa?
So I think we were just talking about how there's interest in the W3C and using Web Intents for other things to connect media streams and that kind of thing. And I think that this is exactly in the same vein, right? Web Intents is very directly inspired by Android Intents. They work together relatively nicely because they're directly inspired. And you can imagine all kinds of really interesting use cases that connect the two. So I think this is absolutely a great idea. It's something really cool that we'd love to do. But right now, we don't have it.
I mean, right now we don't have it. It's something, I'm quite passionate about. Mm-hmm. However, we've got a really big problem on the web in the sense that we can't connect apps easily, right? We want to make sure that web developers and apps on the web at the moment get a great experience, like an interconnected experience.
Yeah. And so we're focusing on making it work in Chrome today, implementing that spec that's being discussed in W3C. Before we move on to even bigger and cooler things, like integrating with Android and Intents.
Yeah, I mean, people on the W3C at the moment have been talking about trying to integrate with TVs, right? Yeah. So you say, I need to play a video, I need to share a video with something that can play a video. You fire the intent, the browser might be able to discover a list of devices that are connected to your home network by UPnP discovery, and send the video straight out to that remote device, straight from your web app.
The possibilities are really cool. There's a lot of really neat use cases that are made very easy with web intents that a lot of people are excited to build on top of.
Yeah, but we're just starting out, right?
Starting out.
This is it, right? We've only been, I think, publicly. We announced it a year ago. I think about a year ago, and we've been kind of working on an implementation inside Chrome, working with standards groups as well to actually get this, up to a good level before we can actually start thinking about integrating externally. Cool. So I hope that answered the question. We also have another question. What browsers support web intents? Chrome. Chrome definitely supports web intents from stable right through to Canary. Obviously, Canary's got some of the latest things that are happening inside the API, but it is actually on the stable channel of Chrome.
I think one of the important things to emphasize here is that this standard web intents we hope it will be one day become a formal standard, but we're discussing it's a working draft right now, spec in the W3C. So although Chrome is the only one that currently implements it, we've been laying the groundwork, having the discussions with all the other browser vendors in the standards bodies to make this something that other browsers could one day implement as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good implementation generally inside WebKit as well now, so the theory is that anyone who implements WebKit could also do an implementation themselves of web intents quite easily.
Yeah. So although this is currently only implemented in Chrome, our hope is, of course, that other browsers will pick this up.
Yeah.
And I should also say too, really quickly, the implementation we have in Chrome right now is experimental. We know that this API, as we're developing and as we're going through the specification process, as we're talking to other browser vendors, some things might change. And right now, it's definitely, we want to get it out there so that developers can start using it, can start showing off the cool things they can do with it, and help us develop and evolve the spec.
Yeah.
So.
And we do have a shim as well, which the shim works in Internet Explorer's 8. Yeah, 8 and above. Opera, I can't remember which version. I know it works in the latest version of Opera. It did work in Firefox. I need to fix a bug because I introduced a content security policy, which I won't say is a complete nightmare, but it's harder to implement than other kind of APIs at the moment.
So basically the shim allows you, although Chrome implements it currently directly into the browser, the shim basically allows you to instead use a little bit of JavaScript include that would then sort of pop a separate iframe to allow the user to pick which action they wanted and then connect it to the service.
And the theory is it'll be binary compatible essentially with the API. Obviously, as the API changes, we might get to points where JavaScript kind of polyfill won't be able to do exactly what we want to do, but by then hopefully other browser vendors will kind of all using the same API. Okay, so the next question, actually there's another question jumped up in front. How do you include a support for suggestions parameter in web intents in Chrome? If not, when will we see the support? So just a kind of a bit of background behind this, because we couldn't show the demo, web intents has got quite a few little features already built in. Well, the web intents implementation inside Chrome has got discovery and discovery features built straight into kind of the interface. And one of those features is the ability to find applications that would have the support to edit an image. So if the user says, I need an application to edit this image, we can pop up a list that basically says, these are the applications that the user has installed right now. But there are actually other applications out on the Chrome Web Store which also support the same types of functionality, editing images, picking data from other services. So one of the things that people have asked for is the ability to basically kind of manually control that list of suggested services, not necessarily have them come from the Chrome Web Store. The reason being, you might know, for instance, that you support Twitter, right? And you want to have that ability to the user, if they haven't got it installed, to be able to install that application, which might not necessarily directly come from the Chrome Web Store. So the suggestions is basically a list of developer-provided suggested services that they know complete the action and kind of complement their site very well.
So if you're firing an intent and saying, starting an intent, then you don't have to, and you know a few apps already that are pretty good matches for it. You can provide those so they can be shown to the user as suggestions. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically it's to solve the bootstrap problem. We think we've done a really good job in Chrome in the sense of providing a set of applications from the Chrome Web Store, but quite often developers will want to provide their own list. So to actually answer the question, it's not implemented just yet. I believe we're still working on it at the moment. The reason why it's kind of a little bit up in the air is because when we've been talking to the guys at the W3C, we might have to kind of iron out a couple of things. But it's something that we want to support. We get a lot of developer feedback. It's just a matter of kind of when. So if you do have any suggestions, I would suggest that you kind of just pop some feedback on the web intents, public intents group on the W3C, and again, I'll share the actual list out. But there's some active kind of conversations going on about the types of features that are needed by developers to have this API, make sure it's of use to them essentially. So like I said, we don't have support for suggestions just yet, but it should be hopefully soon, but it all depends on the W3C and stuff.
And again, just to emphasize that this is definitely an evolving API. We're learning as people use it, what things are useful, what things they need. And so we're listening very carefully to what your feedback is on this API to help feedback into the specification process and the implementation in Chrome.
Yeah. So that was Glenn Jones in Brighton. So I know he's got a whole load more questions in today as well. So hopefully we'll be able to answer them. So let's have a look. Have you been doing any work with NFC, being able to receive web intents from tags? Android Beam, etc. seems like a logical fit. I think the quite frank answer is not directly anything with NFC. There are a couple of interesting possibilities which I believe has been discussed briefly on the public intents group of basically being able to kind of look out for URLs that the user might go to that applications can handle. But this is too early on in kind of the whole specification at the moment. We want to make sure that we have a good solid ground for being able to find applications that perform definite tasks before we kind of think too much about kind of trying to integrate with NFC.
Yeah, there's a ton of possibilities, really cool ideas. Like NFC is a great idea here, but we just have a lot of stuff that we're trying to do, and so we want to get to that point. But right now we're focusing on really making sure that the core foundation is really solid and something people can build on top of.
Sure. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. It's one of those things, right? And then we're tracking this now, so we should be able to kind of give you some more information as things change. So if we talk about it on the intents group, the W3C, then we should be able to find a nice way to actually give you this information back. So the next question: in the recent Google I/O 2012 talk, you mentioned that the interface for web intents in Chrome is currently being redesigned. When will we get to see it? And can you talk about it now?
Well, so one cool thing that I think is really cool about Chrome is that we do the vast majority of our development in the open. So if you're using Canary, you're seeing the very cutting edge of what's in Chrome.
Yeah.
So already some of this work has started, and actually, if we were able to show the demo today, you'd see that the UI has shifted already a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're already starting to make progress on updating this UI and making it really, really smooth.
Yeah. So I mean, some of the feedback that we've had is that actually the user interface didn't respond, especially for an inline intent. And for those who don't know what an inline kind of intent is, it's the ability to have a pop-up that appears just over the context that the user currently has inside the browser. So if they're, say, going to share a link from a blog, for instance, you don't want to necessarily be completely redirected to another application like Twitter or Google Plus and all these types of things. You just want to have it appear just over the thing that you want to share, right? Mm-hmm. So the inline intent is that same thing. And this is one of the areas that we've had a lot of feedback from developers at the moment, is that it looked rough.
Yes,
early, I think is the way of saying it.
And we've definitely been working on iterating on that design, and we knew it was rough, but we wanted to get it in the hands of developers as soon as possible so they can start using it.
Yeah. So if you go to Chrome Canary channel now and kind of fire an intent that does the share, demos.webintents.org is a good place to start. You'll basically see the kind of the inline kind of user interface has changed. So it's got this idea of it's constrained dialogue. The idea being that the intent picker itself can actually kind of adapt more freely to the user interface, to the actual page that's being displayed. So the page that you've embedded is 800 pixels wide. The actual user interface for the actual intent display will adapt to that that 800 pixels. So it is being worked on, and expect more changes.
Expect a fair number of more changes. We're really working hard to make this a really tight UI that's a pleasure to use.
Yeah, I mean, the success of web intents is kind of generally tied to user experience. Mm-hmm. So because users need to be confident of what they do inside their browser, and we're acutely aware of this, and we're making changes to accommodate for that as well. So hopefully that again was Glenn Jones, and he said Jen Gones, but don't worry about that. I got spoonerisms on my brain. So the next question: as a user, how can I find possible providers for any given intent? Is it something third parties could do to catalog providers of different intents?
Before you answer that question, I just want to point out too, just so for people who aren't aware, when you fire a web intent as a developer, the Chrome Web Store, what we do right now today is if the user doesn't have any web apps installed that can handle that intent, then we show actually a list of apps that can handle that intent from the web store. So this is a natural way that even if you fire an intent, even if the user doesn't have anything installed, they can still find applications really easily that can handle that intent.
Yeah.
But,
so yeah, that actually pretty much answers part of the question. It's completely possible for if another user agent wants to implement intents that they might have their own directory of intents themselves. This actually brings up an interesting question about why we wanted the intent tag, right? So for me, right now we have to use the manifest inside Chrome. So you have a Chrome application or extension which has basically a small piece of what essentially amounts to JavaScript inside the manifest that describes exactly what your application does. It says my application can share links or edit images. So the interesting thing just generally is that the Chrome actual manifest itself is very specific to Chrome. And when we've been talking about kind of web intents publicly, generally is we really kind of keen on this idea of an intent tag. A very small piece of HTML that can live inside applications, web applications on the web that actually describe the capabilities of your app. What that enables you to do is things like search engines, for instance, could come along and start to understand the capabilities of the apps so that they could offer suggestions for the user if they, for instance, maybe search on the open web for image editing applications, right? So that's kind of cool. And at the same time is because it's a tag and discoverable on the open web, any third-party system could come along, scrape the contents and provide that directory. So I'm not going to say openintents.org, I think, are going to do this because we haven't spoken to them just yet. But they could go along and start cataloging kind of the intents that have been discovered on the open web, which can provide extra directory services so that you can go in.
The community here is really going to be really key in helping evolve how to use web intents, how to catalog which intents are available.
Yeah.
And the intent tag is really key. So today we're using Chrome Web Store as the natural directory of stores or of applications that can handle intents, but that's just a temporary solution. We're working in this with W3C and in the standardization process to find a way for people, for just normal web pages, to be able to say, hey, I can handle that intent.
Yeah. I mean, application capabilities should just be kind of available on the web just generally.
Yep,
so.
Absolutely. There's one other thing I wanted to say, which is an important point about web intents, I think, is web intents is basically the plumbing that allows you to connect up, to not have to know what other app you're connecting up to, and for Chrome or the browser to help initiate that connection. Once you have that, how you talk over that connection is to some extent up to the conventions that you're following.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be really important for the community to be actively involved in helping us define, as a community, what the right conventions are to be speaking over this channel that web intents allows you to create.
Yeah. So that goes to the point of we've defined 5, 6 different actions. The ability to share data, edit data, pick data from a service, and save it out to a remote service, and view as well. So the ability to say, look, my application can just view images or view videos. This is just a very small set of kind of common actions that we believe are actually on the open web right now that people are kind of using. But there might be use cases, for instance, payments, I think is one, for instance, and authentication, where we haven't said that we're going to define that in intents directly. Mm-hmm. We haven't said that we're going to define that in the webintents.org area, but because this is open and discoverable, people should just be able to go say, well, I want to start experimenting with the ability to manage payments on the web via intents, and then applications kind of bring up from get built up from there. Yeah. But it all depends on great documentation in the community.
Yes.
I mean, this is what we found now. I mean, when I first started with this kind of whole idea is, we wanted the URL for the action because we can describe the documentation and some of the best practices. And actually, when you speak to developers, they want even more documentation, even more kind of guidance about exactly how these actions should be implemented. And this is one of those things that we're going to see on the open web as well, is when people start building their own intents, they'll want great documentation as well.
Absolutely. And so we're definitely we want to help. We want to help the community be a part of this and help define how to use web intents. And the question of NSC was a great one. There's so many use cases for web intents. I am so excited to see what the community is using this for and what kind of use cases it wants to enable. It's really exciting, I think.
Yeah. I think so. I went a little bit far against that question. So we'll move to the next question at least. How will web intents handle verbs like edit, where the application desired would be dependent on the context as on the file type, e.g. editing an audio file that's a song, I wanted to open in GarageBand versus the general sound in Audacity?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So the insight is that just because you have a certain file type, you might still want to open different types of those files in different applications in different contexts. So the example here is I've got a sound file. It's technically an MP3, but I want to open it in GarageBand if it's a song versus I want to open it in Audacity if it's a
So what is Audacity?
Audacity, I believe, is a cool sound editing application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I use it myself. I'm not.
Yeah, we don't. So we don't differentiate. We differentiate between intents on the verb and the data type at the moment. So right now,
I don't know. I don't know how this would be. This is the kind of thing where it'd be interesting to see how the community addresses this use case.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be perfectly possible for someone to kind of do a new edit intent. I mean, we don't particularly want to encourage that because we think we've got a very good generalized solution. But this, right? I'll be honest. I don't have an answer for this right now. But this is what we're trying to discuss on the public intents group and on the Web Intents Discuss at googlegroups.com. These are the things that we want to try and find out, right? Because if it turns out that there's a compelling need for editing different types of image files or different types of kind of audio files in the context of kind of the application, then we might need to provide some kind of better solution. I mean, suggestions is one area, right? The developer might say, look, we want to kind of guide the users down using Audacity or GarageBand for one type of application. Suggestions looks like it might handle some of that use case, but it's not going to help filter the kind of what applications you've already got installed that handle those types of data types and actions.
So again, Web Intents is pretty malleable. So you could use its potential. There's potential in the future if the community as a whole decides, hey, the edit intent isn't expressive enough. I have a different kind of edit. Then maybe it makes sense to create a different intent. We want to definitely encourage the community, all of us, to keep the number of intents small, because the smaller number of intents you have, the more sharing there can be, the more interaction there can be among apps. But every so often there will be a compelling use case that needs a new intent. And as a community, we'll need to experiment with that and figure out what's the right answer. In this case, one other thing to keep in mind is that when a user hits the edit button, they probably know what their action is. Like they know, I want to edit this song right now. And so to some extent, if they see both Audacity and GarageBand in their picker, then they probably know, I'm editing a music file. It's the task I'm doing right now. So they might not actually even need a way to set
they've got the choice themselves to do this, right? So they can choose that.
That's a great question. That was from Jay in Boston.
Cool. So Glenn Jones from Brighton, hello again. What are your first thoughts on Ian Hickson's proposal for merging web intents with register handler APIs and Mozilla web activities?
So Ian Hickson is the editor of the HTML5 spec on Whatwig, and he recently posted a proposal that sort of takes the web intents idea and merges it in with a similar proposal from Mozilla and other ideas. So one of the things to keep in mind about these kinds of discussions and standards, and when you're kind of trying to collectively define a new standard, is there's lots of discussion, there's lots of changing how you think about things, and we really think that something like web intent is really important, but it is of course experimental at this point. And so if ultimately as a community, in the standards bodies, we need to go in a different direction, we're of course open to that. And so we're looking forward to working with Ian and Mozilla and others to really define this spec and make it the best it can be, this basic functionality. So that's a very general answer.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to see so much interaction from other browser vendors as well in this process. It really shows that this is an important problem that we all want to solve, which is awesome.
And the solutions are generally the same as well. So the next question, which is by X, but I actually know who asked this one, Mike Marmoth, I think. So for the sharing intent, which is webintents.org/share at the moment, is it enough to add web intents support via AddThis's integration? So AddThis is a service that aggregates the ability to share pieces of data across, I think, up to 300 different types of networks.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of. I mean, they've done a lot of hard work to actually integrate these networks into a very common generalized solution. And the really cool thing is that they've actually taken web intents on quite early and provided an integration in their little widget that you put on the page, which will fire an intent. So I mean, there's an issue on it, which is the web intents logo, which I gave to them, which doesn't well describe exactly what web intents is. So hopefully that's going to change soon. But generally to this question, I mean, if you've already got an AddThis widget on your page, it just makes perfect sense just to keep that on because they aggregate across a whole lot of different networks. One of the things that we're seeing with some people that we've worked with recently is that when they integrate a share intent, they might have a direct integration already with, say, Facebook and Twitter. And what you then go and find is that they'll have like all the rest of the services, and all the rest of the services is generally provided by the web intents. So that's what we're seeing at the moment. I wouldn't get rid of your AddThis integration at all. They provide a very valuable service, as well as it's not just the ability to share to different networks, it's the ability to kind of get metrics on like page views and also kind of the types of networks that your data and your users and viewers were sharing data to.
And ultimately, AddThis was created to come up to solve a problem, a very real problem that also WebIntents is trying to solve as well. And I think AddThis adds a lot of extra cool functionality as well, but WebIntents does address some of these issues. So if you already have AddThis, it's great. It's really simple to switch to their WebIntents.
And they already provide support for WebIntents as well. So it's
but yeah, it's really cool. Again, a lot of people trying to solve the same basic problems is showing there's a real need here.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing as well is, I mean, because WebIntents is quite generalized, the ability to share something, normally is links. But if you look at different services like Tumblr, for instance, they share quotes. You can select a piece of text and share that single quote. And how that actually works with a generalized solution that isn't WebIntents is pretty hard, right? So when you look at different services and different things that are going to come in the future, you might want to share an image, you might want to share a video, like a physical video file. You might want to share a document type which is like very kind of uncommon but very specific to the kind of workflows that you use, whether it's a Word document, a Google Doc, all these different types of things. Actually providing the kind of a widget-based system is pretty hard. So we believe WebIntents in this case would be, like, that's where it comes into its element basically. Yeah. You could share your own types of data with services that support the same type of thing. Yeah, so
WebIntents definitely adds on additional functionality, and it's more useful for other types of use cases that aren't directly addressed by AddThis as well.
So there's a question from Lynn in Shanghai. If a website uses JavaScript shim to register the handler via intent tags, can Chrome invoke the handler natively without the JavaScript shim? Okay, so a little bit of information about the JavaScript shim. So the JavaScript shim is designed to replicate the functionality of web intents in browsers that don't actually support web intents natively. So right now there is native support inside Chrome. Chrome has the code available to actually register the intent tag natively. However, the functionality is turned off. So what this actually means is if a page detects the intent tag, it won't do anything. If the browser detects the intent tag, it won't actually do anything at the moment. This also means the same for the JavaScript shim, because the JavaScript shim just delegates functionality straight to the browser if it detects that native functionality is already in place. So right now, if the browser detects the shim, in Chrome at least, it won't do anything. If you have the JavaScript shim and it's already been detected and it's in, say, a browser like Firefox or Opera or Internet Explorer, then they're just going to be registered in the kind of the shim's data store, at least at the moment. So yeah, we don't have that bridge. We don't have that way of converting users directly from, if you've used the shim in Chrome before it landed natively, to when we get that intent tag support down the line. So we don't have a great answer for you on that one, unfortunately. But that's the state of what it is at the moment. I don't think there's anything else to add really on that one. I believe so.
The next three.
Yeah. Did we miss any from before? Sorry about this. I'm not in presentation mode for the moderated questions. So here we go. Page load.
Did you click on it?
I might not have clicked on it. There you go. I didn't click on it. Okay. So to what extent can OS native non-browser applications hook into web intents? That's a really good question. Right now, none. But that doesn't mean that we can't do this, right? If the browser can provide a hook into its registration system, then that's something that could be supported in the future. It just requires vendor support and kind of external application support.
This is another great example of there's tons of possibilities for web intents in the future. Right now we're focusing on web app to web app, but there's obviously tons of opportunity for doing things from web app to browser, browser to web app, web app to native app, within Android apps.
Web app to external device.
There's all kinds of different connections that web intents could help be the broker between. So this is another great example of something that we'd love to do, and I think it's a cool idea. And we aren't looking at actively right now, but just because we're focusing on really nailing the basic functionality of web app.
So I believe this is the last question, and it's actually for me to repeat the different types of intents that we have. So Wes Short from Shasta Lake in California. Hello, thank you for your question. Is what are the 6 data intents that you've identified again? So basically we've identified 6 types of intents, 6 actions that users will perform commonly across the web that we believe should be like built-in support to the API.
Although I should point out, built-in does not mean it's actually specified in the specification. It just means that these are the sort of the default actions that we think users of this API will most likely want to standardize or build consensus around.
Yeah. So the first is share. The interesting thing about share is that it's not just about sharing links, it's about sharing any type of data. So the ability to send some data from one application to another to
an image or...
Yeah, like send an image. So we actually use this at Google I/O is, our example was, it's really hard to actually share an image on the web today to a remote application, well, like a remote web application like Gmail, for instance. We have Mail2. Mail2 is a protocol on the web for basically being able to send an email. And what happens when you click on the web today is you'll click Mail2, it'll open up your preferred application. I believe we've got it in Gmail support. And you have to encode the data in a very specific way to do title person 2, the title of the email and the body. But what it neglects to do is actually, most people want to share not just this very basic email text. They want to share images, they want to share videos and all this type of stuff. They want to share links as well, links that they find on the web. And the idea behind the share intent is that you can say in your application, and our ImageMaker application example, which we could have shown today if it wasn't for me, it has the ability to share this image out to different types of networks that support sharing images very specifically. And what this enables you to do in the future would be to say, well, I want to share it out to Twitter via, say, Imager, which is the integration that I've put in as an example. Imager supports the ability to share images. I just want to deliver the data, that image, to that application. So we have share, and it's not just about sharing text, it's about sharing the ability to share images, the ability to share videos, any type of data that you want. You can be very specific about and kind of pass it out. The next is edit. The reason why I think edit's actually kind of important, and we need to kind of talk about it a little bit more, is because you have data in one application, and you want to get it into, say, your image manipulation application. So do you maybe to put like a funny text or a funny caption on the image? Today, right now, unless you've got a very deep integration with that third-party system, the user has to right-click on the image in the browser, download it to the desktop, upload it to the image editing application, change the image inside the image editing application, then right-click on it to save it, download it back to the desktop, and then try and upload it back into that app.
What's funny is when I do that in practice, I'm like, oh, this is just what you do. Yeah. But when you describe it that way, that's insane.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's crazy. So the idea behind edit is you just say, I need to edit this image, and it finds the applications that support image editing, sends the data to it, and then once the user's finished kind of editing the data inside the application, they can just return that data back to the colon app. So the data just lives inside the browser, is transferred from browser tab to browser tab. Never really has to touch the internet if it doesn't have to, and then it can edit and bring the data back in, and that's completely different to what we see on the web today at the moment. So edit for me is really important. The next, I'm going to skip one that's on webintents.org documentation just for now, is pick. The reason why pick is kind of cool is because we've got things like Google Drive, Box, Box.net, Dropbox and Box.net, for instance. These are all your clouds, all your files are starting to kind of live in the cloud, right? And you don't want to have one application have one direct integration to the service that you don't use, right? So the idea behind web intents is that you could say, I want to pick my file, my image, my document from any of my cloud file storage solutions. I can never say that phrase. And then bring it back into my application. And that's what the pick intent does. You pick a file or pick some data from some service. The next is save. So the complementary service to pick is save. So you want to save an image, something that you've edited on the web or inside a web application. Right now, if you kind of try and do a save, you normally have to save to the file system. You either right-click to save down, or maybe do some hacking Chrome on the anchor to do a download. Download it and put it into your downloads directory. It's pretty crazy, right? And save is designed to say, well, I picked from Google Drive, for instance, and I want to save it to Dropbox. So the idea is that you can have these three services integrated, not necessarily with each other directly, but you can pull from one service, edit the data in another app, and then send it back out to another. So pick is to pull data in, and save is to push data out that you've just edited, for instance. We have also view. So view is kind of interesting, right? Most people don't think of this on the web as probably, you'll watch a YouTube video, right, and you watch it inside YouTube, or you watch a video and you might watch it inside Vimeo. But what you do if you actually have a video file that's either been sent to you via email or it's on your desktop and you want to view it inside like a special kind of video viewing piece of software, you're not necessarily going to upload it to one of these kind of video services just to go and view the video. You might want to just view it inside your web app. And we don't see many web applications today which are just dedicated to viewing file types. I mean, we just don't see them at all, I don't think. And the view intent is designed to say, well, if Chrome detects that for instance, that you've downloaded a video, I mean, this functionality is not in there just yet. But if Chrome was to detect that you've just downloaded a video, why not try and view the video inside a web application that is on the web today? So view I think is a pretty important one. I think it's quite important for things like Chrome OS as well, where literally all your applications just live on the web.
But this is a great meta point too, is that there are things that you do today that are sort of annoying to do. There are other things you don't do today because you can't.
Yes.
And so Web Intents enables new types of integrations between apps that couldn't exist before. So that's one of the reasons that I'm guaranteed that this list that we've got here is going to have things added to it as people actually use Web Intents and realize what the full potential of this kind of technology is.
Yeah. I mean, people have been talking about things like a pay intent, for instance. They want to buy some goods on the web using their preferred kind of merchant, like a merchant of record. So yeah, it's like there's things that we're not even thinking about properly just yet, which people can kind of start and kind of iterate and develop. So I think view is kind of important as well. I say kind of, it's very important. We do actually have view slightly integrated into Chrome at the moment. So if you download an RSS feed or an Atom feed, you'll be presented with a list of services that can support that. I think it's only in Canary and Dev. I don't think it's in stable just yet. So this is one of those things, once the user interface kind of and the flow gets a little bit better, we're going to start seeing these things roll out a little bit more, I think, I hope. But yeah, you can view RSS feeds and Atom feeds in your preferred application. And one of those applications could actually just be the browser with their XML view. And then the last one that we've got documented is an intent called subscribe. The idea behind this is that you normally want to kind of, if you're on a page, you want to subscribe to, say, an RSS feed or changes to kind of the state of that page inside your preferred application. So you might normally view an RSS feed in a specialized reader or a special view, but you might have a subscribe in a different type of application. And one of the guys who've implemented this is MessageBoy. I check it out on the web store at the moment because they have the subscribe intent already built in, which just basically allows you to say, look, I'm going to subscribe to changes in this RSS feed, and this application is going to do something that is not normally just like a view. It's going to kind of aggregate the data and do things behind the scenes that a normal view intent wouldn't do. So subscribe is actually kind of interesting. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's it. I mean, they're the 6 core ones that we've defined so far.
And again, these are not built into the spec. It's up to the community to define and standardize for themselves around which of these intents are useful, which intent action types, and define new ones and define exactly precisely what they mean and when they should be used. Yeah,
and to check these out today, I mean, the simplest thing to do is go to webintents.org/verb name. So it's webintents.org/share or /edit/pick. And what happens there is because we're trying to document like best practices quite concisely, is that we're going to put all the best practices, guidance, example code of how to integrate kind of maybe the share action or the pick action into your applications, both from a client and a service point of view. So if you're a service that wants to kind of provide data to clients, you could say, well, I need to implement the pick. I need to implement the pick for my type of data. How do I go about doing that? You go to webintents.org/pick, and then we'll try and provide you with the best guidance possible for.
Yeah, and we're really working to improve that as well, to make sure that it's useful, has all the best practices. It's a place that the community can work together to figure out to define what these best practices are.
Yeah. Cool. So I actually think that's all the questions that we've had. We do have a weird question at the end, which just looks like some random text.
Yeah, so we won't answer that one.
Well, I can speak random if you want. Yeah, so this was our first kind of Web Intents kind of live stream hangout. I'd be really interested to get the feelers out there to see what kind of stuff that you want to hear us talk about.
Absolutely.
I don't want to do it weekly because we're quite early on in this whole process, and I want to kind of aggregate kind of the best things that are happening around the web so that we can kind of present them to you. But also at the same time, if you have any kind of things that you want me to talk about, kind of get some engineer. Well, I haven't asked the engineers yet. If they want
we
to
should.
I think they should. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of engineers over in America who are actually working on this project at the moment. We can get these in as well and kind of talk to them. Kind of get some feedback from you guys. Hopefully we'll have a better hangout as well, so that I can kind of invite third parties into it as well.
So in this, as in everything in WebIntense, really it's up to the community to help figure out how we should be doing these hangouts, how we should be doing, how should WebIntense.org should work, how to use this API and sort of feeding back in so we can make sure we're designing it in the best possible way, so it's most useful for everybody.
Yeah. So cool. I think we're done. So what I'm going to do as well, and I encourage everyone to, well, not everyone to do, I'm going to share a whole load of links. You can share links if you want. But I'm going to share a whole load of links on our WebIntense Google Plus page. I encourage everyone to try and follow that, because that's where our kind of centralized communication channel for kind of pushing out updates and everything is.
It's following all this stuff is hard. I mean, if you're trying to follow the spec discussions on W3C, there are a lot of very smart, very technical people having very interesting and complicated discussions. And as a web developer, I just want to summarize it for me. Tell me what's going on. And so the WebIntense Google Plus page is a great place to follow in a more summarized way, an easier to consume way. Know what's going on.
Cool. So, thank you very much for your questions. I'll be here again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Right.
I'm not sure how we turn off.
Click on that page.
So stop streaming. There we go.
Okay. Goodbye for real.
Goodbye.